Good morning and welcome to the class of certifying and educating the handler of therapy hens. I'm Gwen Bale. I'm a certified handler of therapy hens via Chickens and You and the Gossamer Foundation. It was a long series of classes via webinar pre-COVID and included an exam and getting a certification. And I've been doing therapy chicken work since 2016. Unfortunately, last year I had to give up my therapy work because of my husband's medical conditions, and I miss it tremendously. But that's what goes on with life, and I'm happy to be able to educate more handlers with therapy hens to help in the future. We live in Haddon Township, which is about 10 minutes from the Ben Franklin Bridge to Philadelphia. So if anybody's happy after getting certified and wanting to share some of the contacts that I have with me, I have a lot of people that are looking for someone to bring therapy hens to their location, which I'm unable to do. I will be saying chickens, mostly it's hens. I did have one woman who came down from Rhode Island quite a few years ago and had her rooster certified, and he did a wonderful job until he died last year. So here we go. We're going to be talking about quite a few things. Part one is about your therapy chicken altogether, how to handle and manage them, control their stool since you'll be out in public, transport them, and is it better to have two therapy hens than one? And what kind of tricks can you do? Changing the chicken image and educating the public, which is very important. Part two is setting up a therapy program that fits into your life. How much time do you have for the program? How to make connections, have a website, logo, and banner, the types of visits that interest you. Do you want to just do one type of visits, story times, or go to assisted living, whatever you're most interested in? And do you need insurance? And part three is a follow-up. There's an optional exam if you do want a certificate. I have to say only a couple of times in the years I was doing therapy did somebody want to see a certificate, but it did happen. So if you want to take an optional exam, just email me after you've watched this, and I'll be more than happy to send it to you, grade it, and send you back a certificate. And I do have a Facebook page for certified handlers of therapy hens that I created, and I'd love for you to join that page once you finish the class, so you can see what other people are doing and make suggestions and share some information. Before I get too much further into this, I do want to stress the difference between the types of animals that help people per se. So of course there's service animals, which we would associate primarily with seeing eye dogs or dogs that are able to tell that you're going to have a seizure and whatever. So that certainly doesn't apply to chickens. There's really nothing that I know that they could do that would consider them a service animal. The one that is most confusing are emotional support animals. And granted, I think all people with hens that interact with them, that call them pets and whatever, see them as their own emotional support animal, but it's not really for a medical reason. It's not like an autistic child having having a hen that makes them feel better or gives them some purpose or structure in their life. Unfortunately, I've had way too much contact with people over the years who have had chickens illegally in other towns and then try to use the emotional support angle in order to get out of rehoming their hens. There are websites online that you can pay money to get a certificate saying that you need emotional support chickens or whatever. And it's really a farce. And most times council don't fall for it anyway. If you truly have a problem, maybe you have bipolar disorder and chickens really do help you, or you have a depressive disorder or a child with autism, you need to do your homework before you get chickens. If it's legal in your town, you go through the process and get hens, and they can be really listed if you have documentation from your doctors, or psychiatrists, psychologists, medical doctors saying that you need emotional support chickens. That's one thing. But before you get them, then you would have to, if your town did not allow backyard hens, approach your council with the letters and see if there's any way that they would give you a waiver, and let you have hens because you have documentation before, not after. So you'll see a lot of posts on Facebook page. Well, go online, get them certified as emotional support animals. Don't fall for it. It really doesn't work. And what we do is therapy chicken work. Now, is it true therapy? We'll get into talking about that, but really it's taking your hen to some facility, to a library for story time, to a senior daycare center, to assisted living. You're taking your hen out really for fun and entertainment to other people. And that's what's the difference is, and what makes them a therapy hen and not an emotional support animal. So I really wanted to make sure that you understood that. So your responsibilities as a handler, obviously you need to know your chicken and be able to anticipate their behavior. Know your signs of stress. Of course, one of the major ones is excessive panning. You just have to watch them. You have to try to be able to anticipate how they'll react. If you're holding the chicken and there's a loud noise, do they get real wingy or want to jump down, or what do they do? You're always an advocate for your chicken at all times. Very conscious about hygiene. Actually, I'm a retired nurse. I was a nurse for 40 years. I'm 75 now. And the last 28 years, I was a certified nurse midwife, delivered over 2,000 babies in my career. So you will see a lot of things about hygiene here because that's me. And I'm very conscious about that. You also have to be aware of body language of others, how they respond when you come near them with the chicken. Do they withdraw? Do they pull back? Do they look like they're tense? Always be honest and transparent in everything about chickens. You are really out there to be chicken ambassadors. Be able to answer questions. They're going to ask you, like, what's the average lifespan of a chicken? Or how can you have eggs if you don't have a rooster? There's a lot of myths about chickens. You know, chickens are dirty and they smell. No, their poop smells. Chickens themselves don't smell. So it's a really good thing to be able to get rid of a lot of the myths that are out there as well. So part one, the therapy chicken. So we're going to talk about selecting and working with your chicken. Now, this is Rosebud, who was my very first therapy hen, and actually our very first therapy visit. A friend of mine had a relative in an assisted living and talked with their administration and activities director and got us a visit there for the first time. And this woman just absolutely loved her. You could see her reaching out to the hen, not me just giving her the hen. And it was wonderful. And it turns out that they had actually notified our local newspaper that the Courier Post that a therapy hen was coming, and being it was such a unique thing, they sent a reporter and a photographer, and they took this picture. And all the pictures that are in here, I have permission to share. So back to your chicken. Does it seem to be relaxed and calm around other people, or only you? Can your husband or spouse hold your chicken too? How about your kids? If it's just you, you're going to have to do a little bit of work because you're going to need to have the chicken be calm around others too. They must like and trust humans. They be people friendly. They're not the ones that you put your hand out and they run away from you. They seem to love to be touched, held, and petted. Calm and docile and easily controlled. The one that I have currently in my house, I rescued her from a friend who lost 5 of them to a fox. And unfortunately, she came the day before Thanksgiving. And of course, they have a 30-day isolation. in my kitchen in an area where we don't have any food preparation or eat or whatnot. And by the time that was over, it was Christmas and it was too cold, too much temperature change to relocate her outside. So Darlie became a house hen till about a week and a half ago. And then we had several days of really, really bad rain, and she was in her little igloo, and it's not very protective. So she's back in again till someday this week when I can relocate her back out and she can be dry. But we've had a lot of people friendly time together, and she just settles, she nestles right in. If I have her on my lap, I don't have to even hold her there. She'll crawl up to my shoulder, and you can just feel her tension go as she melts kind of into my arms, which has been really neat since I've been working with her for about 4 months. They can't be wingy, meaning you can't move them and then wow, the wings go flying everywhere, because that could really frighten somebody who's wanting to hold them and make it uncomfortable. And they have to be entertaining. They're not pecky. They're not into pecking different things, and because you don't want that to scare anybody either. And not easily startled by loud noises. So, you don't want her all of a sudden, if there's somebody drops something, that she gets wingy and scares somebody. So of course, work with your chicken at home at first. Spend some time with her separate from the rest of the flock, whether it's inside or out. I usually do it inside. Be gentle, talk nice and calm and quietly, and see whether on her own she wants to peck at things. I wear glasses, don't wear much jewelry except my wedding ring, and I don't wear nail polish. And I suggest that you don't wear nail polish either. One of the things about, especially women in assisted living, they seem to love having their nails done, and often their nails are red. So maybe you might want to try it just to see at home. But the point is that these are the things that attract your chickens, and chickens' favorite color is red. So you treat them like a 2-year-old. So you're holding them, and all of a sudden they want to peck at your ring. You pull your ring away, you yell loud, no, just like you would with a little kid. And usually after a couple times it works. So I've never really had a problem with them pecking anybody. Or even if I'm out with them, because I don't wear a diamond ring, and I see somebody that has a good size sparkly diamond, I'll say, turn the ring upside down or round so that the diamond doesn't show. You'll probably be fine. And I even make a joke, she could be a pickpocket or whatever you would call it, with taking your ring if you're not careful. But and if they really do have red nail polish, maybe they could curl their fingers down and sort of pet with the top of their fingers instead of their tips of their fingers, so that the nail polish isn't there. So that visualizing anything that's going to be an issue, you want to look at ahead of time. Use rewards. They do something good, you give them a blueberry or dried mealworm or whatever you like. Experiment with holding the chicken in different positions, because you're going to have to probably tuck them under your arm while you're doing this or that. And practice putting them on someone else's lap. Again, use your spouse or one of your children, and be sure that you're comfortable handing them to the other person. I wound up, because of orthopedic issues myself and double knee replacement, that when I visit, especially assisted living and those kind of programs, I use a desk chair with wheels. I ask them if I can borrow a desk chair. Wheelchairs are not movable enough, because I need to be equal with them so that I can just lean forward, because I'm sitting in a chair as well, and hand them the hen. And it's much easier, and it's not so uncomfortable for me as bending over. When you have 20 some people in a room that all want to hold the chicken, then it can be very uncomfortable kind of being scrunched over them to do that. So come up with ways like using a wheelie chair, and it does make it easier. And build trust. And how do you do this? I think just being calm and kind all the time to your hen, being known as the treat person or whatever, doesn't hurt, but they need to trust you. And that I think is a big key. And here's a carrying the hen under your arm, kind of tucked down, so that you have your other arm free to do what you have to do. Carriers are important. How you're going to get your chicken to different places. I love these. This one I got on Amazon, and it has zippers on one end, one side, and the top. And it fits right on the passenger seat of my car, straight across, straight longwise. And the seat belt goes through the straps so that I feel that it's pretty secure. I put the side view that has the zipper so I can see it in case there really was an emergency, that I could pull over on the road and unzip it and deal with whatever was going on in there. But one of my favorite stories is you can see on the end here that there's a double zipper at the bottom. And my probably best ever therapy hen, Sadie, was really smart. And I never bothered before. I usually just had it zipped up to the top. Well, we were driving on a major highway, 295 in South Jersey. And all of a sudden, Sadie had her head out. And here she had used her beak to separate where the zipper was and get it down enough that she's looking at me with her head out of the carrier. And I thought I was going to die of laughing. But she was that smart to figure it out. So you can see in this picture, the two zippers, if you look carefully, are at the bottom because she couldn't do anything then. She couldn't get into a position to open it because I just was lucky she only ever got her head out. And they can be so comfortable in there that they have an egg. This was Blossom. And quite often we'd be out and on the road and she'd nestle down into, you'll see, we talk about Excelsior pads inside the carrier, and she'd have her egg right in there. So getting your chickens used to a carrier, traveling together if you're going to take more than one, and I do think that having more than one is ideal. Not for every event, but sometimes, especially tabling events, if you're going to an Earth Day festival or something like that, and it's going to be a few hours, it's really nice to have more than one so that they can alternate. Make sure you have worked with them putting a diaper on around the house or whatever first, because it takes a little getting used to. Usually they walk backwards initially. It's really funny because they know something's back there, so they'll walk across the room backwards. And and the ones I use the most have Velcro, and they'll try to unhook the Velcro. So they have to get a little used to that. And then put them in the carrier, take a short drive around town and see how they do together. Are they going to be okay? Because sometimes you find out that the two that you want to take don't get along in that close quarters for very long. I have three that I was using until I gave up my therapy work, and I could only take one pair. The other one couldn't go with either of them. I only would take her if I was only taking one hen, because they'd be pecking. We were coming back on the expressway from Atlantic City from a big event, and the one actually pecked the other one, and there was blood coming all over, a decent amount of blood out of her comb in the car. And I trying to pull over on the Atlantic City Expressway to stop these from doing their thing. And it was first time they hadn't gotten along. So you can always stop also in a safe location and offer water. So they're used to drinking when they're in the car, especially if you're taking them any distance. Cages at events. Normally, if we're doing a tabling event, I do take this dog cage type cage, again with the Excelsior pads in it. There's two chickens in there. We were at a chicken festival. But you could also use, this is what I use in the house, which I call it a big hamster cage. It's about 4 feet long, and it can hold two for short periods of time. But I do like the smaller one, but it really depends on how long you're going to be there, how many chickens are you taking one or two, and also how much room in the car do you actually have. They have to have access to some food and water. You don't want to overfeed them. Of course, we'll talk about that while they're out. As well as it's important that you know if it's easy for you to take the chicken out of the cage. Some designs of cages may make it hard to reach in to get them, and you certainly don't want any escaping chickens outside while you're trying to do this. When we're doing inside events, we never use the pine chips or that you would use in your chicken coop. We use Excelsior pads because it doesn't make such a mess. If you ever had a cage with the chips in, you find half of them out of the cage. I swear it's a lot of cleanup, and you don't want to be doing that inside auditoriums or something like that. But in your carrier, the red carrier that I showed you, you don't want to use Excelsior pads. Use a towel. And I learned this the hard way because I thought, oh, this is great. It doesn't make a mess. And even though I have the car seat attached by the seatbelt, so it's not going to hopefully move very much, every time you turn a corner, the chicken slides. And if they're kind of laying in there resting while you're driving, Rosebud actually got some abrasions on her chest because of the Excelsior rubbing. So I just put a soft towel in there so that they're comfortable. How much room do you have on the table? Are you really limited? And you also have other things that you're exhibiting with the chickens, signs or what handouts or whatever can make a difference. And maybe your chickens have a preference. Maybe they rather be in the long one. I don't know. Never had an issue, but you never know. As well as the temperature, because the hotter it is, you really want to have a cage that has some decent air and ventilation. So these are the Excelsior pads. I get them on Amazon. I also use them in my nest boxes in my coop, actually. But just again, you don't put them in the carrier, only in cages. And diapers. My favorite are the flock suits. And here in the left-hand picture, two of them were over at the Academy of Natural Sciences in Philly. And we'll talk about that place. We had a lot of good times over there. And they have matching denim blue jean diapers on. But there are other places where, like from on Etsy, they're women, mostly women, I would guess, make them and marry in various patterns. And a lot of times early on, before I really heard about the flock suits, I would get them and get a pair so that they could match if I was taking two. And they match for holidays and that kind of thing. But the flock suits are about $38. I know that sounds like a lot, but they last a really long time. They're very durable. And the new company that bought out flock suits is called featherwearshop.com, which you can find online. And it looks like a pinafore. You're looking at the front here. So it would go up their front of their chest and go up over their head. And then there's another little Velcro tab at the back that you put up under their butt. And then the strap that's on the top connects to it. So it's real easy. I seriously can put a chicken diaper on in about 15 seconds. And you can wash them easy. I'm going to mention, but you do put a little wad of toilet paper in there. So when they go, you can flop that into the toilet, put your diaper with the Velcro tabs all closed so it doesn't stick in a little fabric bag and throw them right in your regular wash. Just air dry them. You don't want to put them in the dryer. And practice and practice. And Rosie, her first time, she didn't have the flight suit then, had a cute little daisy one, and it didn't bother her at all. She had it on, and a couple minutes later, she had jumped up on top of her cage. So it's like, this is no big deal. But then other times, this is Sandy, and they walk around, and then she'll turn around. She's notorious for trying to undo the Velcro. That's what she's pecking at, the top piece of the Velcro. And she also does it as a friend to her other chicken sisters. If there's two of them, she'll try to pull the Velcro off of them too, like she's doing them a favor. But it's kind of cute. Also, having the toilet paper in the diaper decreases possibility of leakage, which is important. And I mentioned washing them in a delicates bag and air drying. Ideally, you don't want to leave the diaper on for more than 2 hours. It probably will have poop in it. So you always want to have an extra one and a separate bag to collect the dirty toilet paper in if you're out. But it gives them a little bit of a break too. As well as I always put a towel on the lap of the person that's holding the chicken. And that's important because I think it actually makes the chicken feel more secure. Sometimes people's pants or shorts or skirts or whatever can be a little slippery material and they might not feel as secure. So you always use a towel. And then one, you're also protecting in case there was any leakage, which I really haven't had a problem with, but keeping them feeling secure. So diet kind of things. A few days before, it's a good idea to give them a little extra oatmeal. It kind of helps decrease runny poop. If at all possible, you don't feed them for 5 hours before. If the visit's later in the day, you can give them more of a whole grain type of food because it'll pass slower. And you can tell, we all can tell, they kind of get that little hunched over little thing and you know they're going to poop. And always keep some damp paper towels. I put a few in a plastic bag so that if I had to do a quick little butt wash or whatever, it's right there. And I know the chickens aren't crazy about the diaper, and you definitely will get a few dirty looks. Okay, so the longer the event, the more likely you are to get pooped on. And, I also usually wear an apron, chicken apron. I have quite a few, just as a backup for me too. And considering things like salmonella and special needs populations, I don't think we should be hung up on it, but we certainly know that chickens can have salmonella and not have symptoms. So I think it just pays to be really careful with hand washing after. We'll talk about that. And the diaper, and for your own self, an extra apron or whatever, just to be on the safe side. Here you can see the towel. She has her diaper on. You can't really see that very well, but that they just really, it's a special needs young man, and they love holding her, and he only has one hand on her. He's not really holding her up there, but she stays. And there's matching diapers and the towel. Before I was using a lot of the flight suits, and that worked too. Okay, chicken harnesses and whatnot. This was our first chicken dog, as we started having chickens the beginning of 2016. This is Freckles. She became blind the last couple years that we had her. She actually died during the pandemic, but she loved the chickens and she was never any issue. And we currently have a nice dog, Desi, who also loves the chickens. Will walk past the cage in the kitchen and, yeah, there's a chicken in here, and just keep going. And they both beg for treats from my husband, and she's wonderful. But anyway, I thought this would be a cute little gimmick, especially if I was like at a farmer's market or something. But I never could feel comfortable. I just had a couple of them sort of slip off when I was using them in the house. And I thought, no, I don't need them crossing the road because they got out of their harness, but maybe you'll be more fortunate or have a better use for it and want to give it a go. Okay, so the whole hand washing risk thing, does this all change your behavior? Does it give mixed messages? Your chicken may not like the smell. If you're going to use hand sanitizer, make sure it's unscented. And you always, if you're going to use hand sanitizer, they use it after they pet the chicken, not before. People will start seeing the container and reach for it. It's like, no, 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 because they can never really get it into their skin enough. So half of that stuff's going to be massaged into your chicken's feathers. So it's not a good idea. I think that maybe a very tiny, if any, benefit of the pandemic is people are much more used to hand sanitizer, and I don't think they feel as maybe a concern about it as much, like, somebody's sick or something. So, but you want to basically use it because we don't want any any transmission of anything. So that's the mixed messages, by automatically, let's use hand sanitizer. We're saying the chickens are dirty, and they're not really dirty. We're just being extra careful. Ideally, salt, hand washing with water is great, but how often do you really have that handy? With little kids, I don't have a strict rule about this, but I make sure that the parent is right there. In fact, you can have a 5-year-old that sucks its thumb. If they're going to put their hands in their face, in their mouth right after they pet the chicken, the parent has to be there immediately with the hand sanitizer after they've pet it, or else I won't let them touch the chicken. If they don't think that they can get to the child quick enough, I don't want them putting their hands in their face. I wash my hands 100 times a day, and probably you do too. Hand washing is certainly better than sanitizer if we need to do it. So why are 2 hens better than 1? Especially if it's a long event. Some of the outside things could be from 9 to 3 or something like that. So it's certainly better to have a chicken on your lap and a chicken in the cage. Maybe give the chicken in the cage the opportunity to not have a diaper on if you feel comfortable putting the diaper on in front of people, and make sure you practice that. And sometimes they want to lay an egg while you're out. You're out during a daytime activity. When do your chickens have eggs? In the daytime. So for that reason, you might be hearing the egg song, so pay attention for that and, take the diaper off and switch them or whatever. I tend to like to use the carrier more than the cage if they are going to lay an egg because it gives them more privacy. And again, some wet paper towels in case you really need to change the diaper some way through the event. And the biggest issue is molting. Heaven forbid I have three or had three that I used when I was able to do this. And they all can molt at the same time. And you really might have to say, I can't come. My chickens are molting because they're so uncomfortable to be picked up and touched. And that's not fair to your hen. That's mistreatment in my mind. So perhaps you have one, and we're going to take two, but now you can only take one. Maybe it won't be able to stay as long, but you got to be open to the people that are inviting you to their facility or to their event, that they understand that when there's no feathers or there's that tiny little feather starting to come in, this is not the time to be putting diapers on a chicken and taking them out to an event. To laying the egg in the cage. This actually was in the cage. This is my bestie buddy, Sadie. And she had an egg. We were over at the Academy of Natural Sciences. And then she turned around. It was just a cute thing. It's like she said, that came out of me. And it was funny because, when we're at the Academy of Natural Sciences, they open their program up early for families with members on the autistic spectrum. So it can be not as crowded. And they put us in Dinosaur Hall because, of course, chickens are descendants of dinosaurs. So it's really an exciting place to be. And most of the families can't wait to see the dinosaurs. Well, this one family was over and Sadie was going to I knew she was starting to have her egg song. Yeah, she's going to have an egg. Well, when's that going to happen? Well, I don't know. It could be 5 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever. So to them, it was more important to stand there and wait for her to have an egg, even though you can't actually in the cage see it come out very well, than it was to see dinosaurs. And they were so excited when she actually had the egg. So what do you do in the beginning? What do you get started before you start going to assisted living and whatever? Is try to do some events in your town or local towns, or you're allowed to have chickens. Your friend in another town's trying to get chickens. Well, maybe take your chickens to an event over there if you can. People can see that they're not loud and stinky and all that kind of stuff. But outside sometimes is a little easier and in the beginning than getting your foot in the door. Here we are with Woodbury Chicken Whisperers, their group, and we were at a garden festival and took some chickens. More events and times to see how your chicken does. So farmers markets, little kids. I mean, obviously I'm holding the chicken on her lap. I'm not letting go. And then here's another one where mom sat down and held the hen and the two little kids. And that was over at the academy too. The two little kids were petting the chicken with mom holding the chicken. This was in our own town. We have a couple nice big events every year, and an elderly friend of mine who had had chickens growing up just loved to work with the chickens. So she would stand over when they were in the cage and talk to the kids and explain all about the benefits of the chickens. And here, and this turned out to be a great story. This was the younger daughter of a family that I think she was about 13 there, that got chickens, and she took the class with her parents to learn about backyard chickens. And then eventually, when she was 16 or 17, she actually took this class and became a certified handler. But being young like that, she just had such a rapport with the other kids. They just loved listening to her talk about chickens. So if you have friends or relatives that want to come with you, it's always fun. And other little tricks that they know. This is a Melissa and Doug piano, and I learned how to get them to work with this by putting dried mealworms on the keys, and basically they're pecking the mealworms, but they make a song, and often we would take it. But more recently, the three that I was using, none of them hit the keys loud enough. So you're going to be in assisted living. You really need to be able to make enough noise that they can hear you, or it's not worth lugging the piano where you go. So this is Blossom. And then in the other picture, I have one hen. This is Sandy again, number one of the current group. And she's a giggler, and you can try it. I have tried every one of my chickens. You just kind of get under their wings and tickle their chest a little bit on the sides. And she actually giggles.
Sandy's giggling. Tickle her. She's ticklish.
So that was always kind of fun when we were at an event to have them, do little tricks. So preparing your hen for a visit. First of all, you really want to check them over well. You're going to bring them in from outside to get them ready and look for any evidence of lice or mites or any physical problems, because you certainly wouldn't want to take that chicken out. Check their vent area, ideally the day before, in case they really need a little bidet, if you need to really wash them, because you don't want to take up extra time needing to use a blow dryer and even a towel, and you don't want to be taking a wet chicken. So if you think they're going to need something, then get that cleared up the day before. If it's really early in the morning that you're going, like a lot of times story times are 9 o'clock in the morning, and we would travel up to an hour to do story times. We did story times in 5 counties of New Jersey, including down by Atlantic City. Or if it's going to be real rainy or something, I would bring them in the night before. I'd have my big hamster cage, as I called it, and scoop her up off the roost and just go in. Hi, it's just mommy. I'm coming to get Sandy. We're going out tomorrow, and she can sleep in the cage in the kitchen, and then that one whole piece is out of the way. You're not having to go out, round up the one you want, bring them in, get them ready. It kind of makes things a little easier to get going. So we would do that. Also check their claws, especially if they're going to be going where there's elderly people. We have very thin skin, so they may need a nail trim or even just a little emery board to blunt some of the points of their nails. I never had to do anything with beaks, but certainly it's good to look at. And wash their feet real thoroughly with soap and water, because you know where they've all been walking. So you want to certainly have them as clean as possible right before you put them in their carrier to get ready to take them. Sometimes a little oil or whatever on their comb and their wattles, if it looks a little dry, is good. And again, don't take a chicken that's molting, because it's unkind and they're just too uncomfortable. Also have some container for water. Water's really important. This little pet Ninja was $12.99 when I got it on Amazon, I think, or maybe Chewy's. And you've squeezed the bottom and the water comes up into the little black cup. So it's much more what a chicken would like to drink out of. And they do need to stay hydrated, of course. So I would always keep that around. And if I had a long trip, I could pull over and give them a little water alongside the road. And then if you're using cages, this is kind of nice, these little giants, they're called, and you could put some water in one, a little bit of food in the other, depending on the situation. And this Katie bin is kind of nice too. It washes up real nice in the dishwasher. Okay, we talked a little bit about leashes. If you want to be positive that you feel comfortable, it's really okay. Now, in the classes that I they talked about the peck and play. They're expensive, number one, but I got one, as you never know, and I was doing some long events, never used it. Wound up giving it to a friend who wanted it just to have an extra space for his chickens to play in when we're outside. So I don't think you really need to do that. Chickens, people love to feed animals. We know that when we go to the zoo, they always want to feed everything. It's like a big deal. Well, I came across this and decided that sunflower sprouts are wonderful, because people are afraid. They want to feed the chicken, but they're afraid they're going to get pecked. So if you use a long sunflower seed, you can, or plant, you can just grab it by the very end of the stem and just direct the flower or the leaf part to them, and their hands are not that close to the beak and they feel comfortable and they love them. Yeah. So we happened to be at a animal food store there. They were having a promotion and they did sell chicken feed. So we went and spent a few hours and it was fun. So you can grow your own, or you can buy places like Whole Foods and Wegmans. You can usually buy the sunflower sprouts in a package. But you can certainly grow your own, and it really is fun to take some, especially for kids to feed. If you don't, and you got to watch because they want to, oh, can I give her more? Can I give her more? And you have to be careful, of course. Always ask permission. So if you're especially in a room with people at an adult facility, do you want to pet the chicken or do you want to hold the chicken? Some people don't want to do either. Some, fine, you come and pet, but I don't want to hold it. Also, you have to consider their clothes. If they're wearing shorts, it's summertime, kids even, maybe you don't feel you're going to get enough protection from the towel. I mean, we put the towel on there again, so the chicken's more secure. But if it's going to be sliding off, you don't want them scratching people. So you might just have to say, I think you're just going to have to pet and I'll hold her because I don't want her to scratch your legs accidentally. If you're going to want photographs, if somebody's taken them for you or whatever, get permission, of course, as well as asking permission before you post them. And be knowledgeable because you're going to get all kinds of questions, and be factual. Always tell the truth. And when you're ready to move on, ask, just don't kind of grab the chicken back. And this can be a big issue because some people really, I swear, could sit there for a half hour holding the chicken. Meanwhile, you got 20 more people that want to see you. So it's like, okay, she really liked you, but we really need to move on. So I'm going to take her back now. And then what will you wear? You need to be comfortable as well. And like I say, apron can be helpful. Okay, so that's all about your chicken in general. Now we're going to talk more about therapy programs and how to set that up. Here we are back at one of my favorite places of Tops. It's a To Our Positive Success, and it's for young adults with special needs. And they just loved us. We would go about twice a year, and you could even see the difference between the first time they met the chicken and when we came back, even if it was a different chicken, because sometimes it was, is you could see them much more relaxed. So after we were there 5 or 6 times, we were all buddies. This was a woman, really fun woman at an assisted living. She was one that didn't really want to give the chicken back. She just had a grand old time. So what do you do? I mean, are you still working full time? What kind of schedule do you have? Are you willing to give up some weekends? Can you work during the work week? How far will you travel? And do you plan on charging? You know, I was retired when I got all into this, so I could go anytime. And I could go on the weekends and do stuff at home during the week. It's not always as easy. In some places, you know, some programs they has to be during the day. Some story times with young kids, they're not going to do them at 7 o'clock at night. Maybe there's something at the library for older kids in the evening you could do. Some assisted livings don't care that much if it's a weekday or a weekend, but they may not want to do it in the evening. So you're going to have to decide what fits into your life the best. Now, we would travel up to an hour because I just felt comfortable doing that. Not everybody wants to go that far. And we never charged. The only time anybody gave us anything was money towards tolls, because especially like the Atlantic City Expressway or across the bridge, if we were going into Philadelphia, there's quite a few assisted living places that we were going to in Philadelphia. And they would give me something towards the tolls, but we never asked for anything. Sometimes they just gave us a gift card to Wawa just because they appreciated us, but it may not be as feasible for you, and that's fine. And you can come up with a scale of different costs depending on what you're doing and see how well you know that it's agreed upon. Some places have it tough. Libraries are losing money. They may not be wanting to pay 25 or 50 bucks for a story time. I don't know. You'd have to check it out and just, you know, discuss fees and decide what you're willing to do. Close to home, as I said, we travel up to about an hour, and we did go into Philly quite a bit. Letters of reference, doesn't hurt. I think only a couple times that anybody asked me if I ever had any references. So if you go to a place and, they really seem to like what you did, ask them, do you mind writing a reference for me in case somebody wants to see, somebody's opinion about our visit? I always would keep one on hand. It just usually wasn't an issue. Insurance coverage, though, has changed a lot. Never even thought about it before. And then one time somebody said, do you have insurance? And I thought, no, I don't have insurance. So I checked into it. We have a really nice outfit, Matlack and Company in Glendora we use for our homeowners and our car insurance. And I contacted them, and she did her research and said, well, dogs and cats are covered, whether they would hurt somebody in your yard or whether you had them out for a walk and they hurt somebody, it's covered under your homeowners. Because I didn't know if I'd have to get a rider to my insurance or not, and how much would that be, since I wasn't charging for anything. And so she said, so there's no difference with your pet chickens. And I think it's important that you say they're pet therapy hens. We want to go places and, the truth, where you want to go. We're going to nursing homes, assisted living. And every year when we get our homeowners renewed, we get a letter that we could present that says that per our conversation is a copy of the insurance, which shows blah, blah, and that we're covered for the use of the chickens or blah, blah. And I would have that. But then it got to be much more common. Burlington County got to be kind of a pain about it. I did some in-person classes at the Burlington Ag Center, and I like to bring a chicken to certain ones, because especially the one that's called the scoop on the coop, and it's kind of, are you really interested in chickens? This is what's involved. And it's nice to have one that's going to sit there for an hour and a half or so and be quiet and not smell, because there's people's big issues. Or I did their farmers market a couple times, and quite a few library visits, and they all wanted proof of insurance. So that became different. Once in a blue moon, a town having an event, not my own town, another town, and they'd say, do you have insurance? So I was lucky, but I certainly think it's not a bad thing to just ask about, to see. But, I wasn't going to pay a couple $100 in addition to do that. And you should have a banner. This was our first one. It really didn't even stay straight very well. But now we have one for when we would go. It's kind of neat because it's double-sided. The thing's long enough that there's the picture thing is on both sides of the table. So this was where when we were doing regular events for around the county, around South Jersey. And then if we were in Haddon Township, it says Haddon Township Hens instead of Camden County. So I could just switch it, which was kind of neat. All right, what kind of visits do you want to do? Assisted living's really fun. You're really helping bring some joy to their lives. Elderly housing, where they really are independent, but they're more living in a group of arrangement apartments or little condos. Elderly daycare is where they actually bring people in by the buses that can't be home because maybe you work. They always were fun to visit. Outpatient care. This was so funny when we were here. This gentleman's sweetheart, loved the chickens. He'd say, well, what's her name? Blossom. 2 seconds later, what's the chicken's name? Blossom. So you do need a lot of patience to deal, but it was just really fun. And they just really love her. So what kind of benefits really are there to assisted living, especially with those with dementia? Is they certainly can be very depressed and feel lonely when they're in an assisted living facility. They don't see their family much, may not make friends, have their mental issues, they don't remember. It can be really very anxious for them. Therapy chickens can really help calm them. And they can really trigger all memories. I had this great memory. We went to an assisted living, and there was a man who not only had contractures of his hands, so he really couldn't bend his hands at all, but he also was nonverbal. And the aide that was following me to give the hand sanitizer to everyone after the chicken said, he'll be fine. Just put the chicken on his lap, because she knew him well. And when I did, there were tears coming out of his eyes, and yet it wasn't get the chicken off my lap. Here, he had a farm. She knew this, and he had chickens, and it triggered those impulses in his brain that he remembered his farm and his chickens. And it just was, I get chills. I'm just sitting here having chills just even remembering that event. But, it can really help people have some chickens that had chickens before. And we've had other ones that were non-verbal. They couldn't really talk to us, but they smile and they giggle when they meet the chicken. So it gives them some minutes of joy and makes their day worthwhile. It's such a great feeling. So here's some more for elderly daycare places. This is on the right, sort of how the room would be set up. And then I would scoot around on a desk chair with wheels, so it was easy to just hand them the chicken. And I would talk to them depending on the group, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. I had a little half dozen box of eggs that I had taken all the inners out of so that I could show them the different colors, because I had a green egger and a blue egger, and I actually had a fairy egg that I had in there, and use my thing where we all look different on the outside, but in the inside we all look the same line, which always I like to do. Or maybe that's when one of the chickens would play the piano. But you got to watch the audience, because depending on the time of day, you can start seeing them nodding off, and it's like, this is done already. It's time for us to go and talk to everybody individually. But this gives you an opportunity. A lot of charity walks, whatever it's for. We've been to several. This one was for a severe problem. I can't remember the name of this one with initials. But people usually mill around. There's usually some tables, and they're milling around until they go and start their walk. And this young man really liked having the chicken there. But again, nonverbal and whatever. But that's an opportunity. And other special needs groups. You can see this man really, and Sadie, just looking back at him just as much. Okay, so in the UK, when you retire, you're called a pensioner, not a retiree. So now they actually call some of them pensioners, and they have coops on the sites of these elderly housing and assisted living. I've never been fortunate enough to convince anybody, any places I visit, to do this, but it would be a great thing. This is in the UK, and they just let the chickens come into the day room, and they can hold them and feed them and save them. And then other places, they actually have a window next to the chicken coop so they can watch them. And depending on the physical capabilities, the residents can go out and do little chicken care chores, like collect the eggs, or maybe scoop the sand a little bit, or feed them and that kind of thing. But it also really gives them something to do. So it would be really great if some of the places around here that are in towns where chickens are legal would do it. I can't imagine it would cost that much money, and I think it would be really worthwhile. So how can they help retirees? It encourages older people to get outside, to care for them and enjoy them. We see it ourselves. I mean, some days it's like, oh, do I really have to go out? And as soon as you're out there, it's wonderful. It just really gets you outside the house, and you bond with the chickens, of course, like we bond with our own. It decreases stress via hormones. They talk to chickens and to others about chickens, don't we all? And encourages cooperation with other residents if they're working together to care for the chickens. But we did hit a major snag about reimbursement because of the term therapy hens. They changed Medicaid, Medicare rules a few years ago, and started to say if we were going to bring therapy hens into their assisted living, they would need a doctor's script for it, and it would have to have numbers on it for what the care was, and whether how this was going to work. So we considered just stressing the educational and entertainment part of it. And so there were a couple places that didn't want to bend the rules, and that was okay. And it was not worth it. And of course, the girls were really sad that we couldn't go, but what are we going to do? So we continued to do our other work. Here's back at the TOPS program that I mentioned, different groups, different people. We see almost the same people all the time when we were going. And developmentally challenged, a lot of Down syndrome. And now this is one of my favorite moments. As we went there, the longer we went, the more we could see how they really started interacting even more. They were so comfortable. And one time when we first went, I told stories about the chickens to them, and I happened to tell this young man, that Rosie really liked music. And it was true. When I had the radio in the car, she seemed like she really liked music. So out of the clear blue sky, he started singing to her. And then every time we were there, he wanted to sing to her more. And we actually saw him at another event. We were outside at another town event. And he came over and said, I have to sing to Rosie. So this really became his thing. And I just love it.
Chicken, you're so calm and sweet. You're so cute. You're so calm. And now the song of you. You're so cute. You're so calm. I really love you. I love you. You're so cute. You'll always be my friend. I love you. You're my best friend. You're so cute.
I just love him saying he loves her and that she'll always be his buddy. And it's just the cutest thing. And you could see how much she's really listening to him and looking at him and calm. And then we visited this young lady that had kidney cancer. And I guess she was about 9-ish, give or take, 9 or 10. And that was a real issue. First of all, when we were coming, it's a private visit to her house. It was around Halloween, and she wanted to know if Rosie had Halloween costume. So somebody had given me a chicken tiara or tutu, and I put that on her. But I had to use all my nursing skills. So before I even got out of the car, I had to put Rosie's diaper on, her tutu on, shoe covers on me, and a mask. I insisted that there be a big towel on her lap that would get right into the washing machine when we were done, and that she wear a long sleeve shirt with the sleeves all the way covering her hands, and that she didn't pet the chicken unless she petted the chicken through this little jacket that she could also take off right after we left. And it was wonderful, and she had such a good time, and just to see her smile after she'd been on chemo and everything else. And I'm really happy to say that the chemo worked, and last time I heard, she was doing really well. So you also have to be transparent. If you have references in insurance, if they ask, you don't have to just say I have. Explain the visit and stress that it's educational and fun, not really therapy. And the chicken will wear a diaper, be on a towel, there'll be hand washing or hand sanitizer after, and no food or drink during the visit. You have to be sure that you tell them all this up front. What's kind of interesting with getting contacts is that a lot of activities directors of these different places, they also meet together to discuss different activities. So you go to one place, then you start getting 3, 4, 5 phone calls or emails. You were at blah, blah, and they really loved you. Can you come to our place? And the same thing with libraries. Librarians meet. Oh, they had story time here. And then you start getting a bunch of emails. So especially in places like assisted living, you have to make sure that there's no food, no nothing, that they can't sit and have their cookies and coffee while you're passing chickens, because they'll be touching chickens, maybe not getting their hands totally clean, eating. It's not a good thing. So they have to know your rules up front nicely, and agree to that, or it's not worth going to. And So if you can't take a hen to a specific facility, like I said, they have rules they don't want to bend. Don't worry about it. There's plenty more to move on. Their loss, not yours. And one time there we couldn't go inside, but then we were invited back as long as we were outside for a visit. They just had more of a hang up of us being inside. So it still worked out. And then the libraries, as I say, we're going to 5 different counties. You can see the chicken hat on my head. It really is a tea cozy that you put over a teapot to keep it hot that somebody gave me. And it just was kind of cute for story time, I thought. And I would take books with me, and sometimes the libraries had some books too, but usually I took my own books that I purchased. And if it was the first time that we were at a library, I actually used footprint paper that you would use, haven't been a nurse in OB. There were footprinters that one side you wouldn't get ink on you. That's the side you put the baby's foot on. And then the other side has the ink, and you push down and it leaves the baby's footprint. Well, I would footprint whichever chicken was coming, and it wouldn't get ink on her, and then donate the book to the library, to Pennsauken Library, from Rosebud to Therapy Hen. One thing, for that, anybody that looked at the book said, whoa, there's therapy hens that come here. So it was kind of good. And I did talk to my accountant, and if it was a place, it was really like a donation. If I was going to a nonprofit place to make a visit, then I could take off mileage and things like the books. I didn't do it for that reason, but he knew about the therapy hens, and we had a big discussion about where we went, and there were certain places that did qualify. But anyway, it was fun, and we did the real young story times as well as older ones. And then a couple of the places were doing books and beaks. They used to have the kids actually working on their reading skills by reading to therapy dogs. But we started having read to the chicken. And if there was a lot of red or yellow, their second favorite color, that they like, I would always comment, oh, show that page to Sandy because she's really going to like those pictures. And the chicken would like the pictures. So after we got through a couple storybooks, then of course the child would come up and still pet the chicken. And then again, as I mentioned, the Academy of Natural Sciences autism program was great. And you can see we were in the dinosaur hall, since they're descendants of dinosaurs. And one time they had a big exhibit, extra special exhibit, with models of dinosaur babies and all that. And they said, oh, bring the chicken in here. We'll get some neat pictures. Actually, I didn't realize I had 2 of the same picture, but they let us bring her in, and she just got took pictures with all the dinosaurs. So we had also visited a lot of nursery schools. Same thing, you have some time, depending on age, you can talk. I had a poster with pictures of their coop and that kind of thing so that they could learn a little bit about chickens. Had my eggs with me to show them the different colors, and then they could come up and pet the chicken. And we also did older schools. This was a Montessori school that we visited too. And then there's a place in Camden called the Center for Environmental Transformation, and college students come for a week at a time from a Pacific university on the East Coast. And they get to work in the greenhouse and do some planning, learn about neat things that are in Camden. And the reason they had us there was just to prove that the grassroots movements can be successful to change laws. And the woman that I know real well thought that that was important too. And yet, it was cool because they're be stressed. They're college students. They're visiting someplace. And here's Blossom just sitting on somebody's lap, no hands. She just would come and check everybody out. And then I have a friend who teaches nursing, and they had been talking about therapy work and therapy dogs. And she said, can you bring a chicken? So I went to the Rowan College of Nursing and had one of the hens that the nursing students could see. Okay, and then other contacts and getting more contacts. This was in Haddon Heights, when after they got their backyard chicken program, and they had this their 4th of July event actually, and the chair of their group made the float, and I pushed Rosie the therapy hen, and people screamed all along, wow, look at the chickens, look at the chickens. And they do the same thing here in Haddon Township. We have one of the largest pride parades in South Jersey. And so our group of, we have 27 homes now with hens in Haddon Township, and it's about 15,000 residents. And then other people from other towns that I've worked with usually come too. And it's the same thing. It's just such an everybody along the line are cheering, oh, it's our chickens. We love our chickens. And it just gives good recognition to it and good publicity that maybe some other towns will change their law or people will get involved in the program. So we had TV coverage. We were on Action News, as I said, when they came to our TOPS program. We've been on the radio. We had the wonderful experience of being filmed for an international documentary on animals, and it was for Discovery Magazine. They came to Philly to one of these adult daycare programs, followed us all around, and it was a couple days, the beginning of March, right before the pandemic hit. And they were from from Europe, and they had to, I forget exactly. I'm blocking at the term. They had to go back. They had to fly back. So I did actually see the domesticated animal thingy, but it never actually made a TV. But it was really pretty neat to have them with the camera, and we spent a couple hours. Sadie was playing her piano, and you can see the cameraman right next to on the right hand side, right next to the piano when Sandy and Sadie were playing, and my husband standing up there behind him. And then the biggie was only last year, CBS News, national CBS News live online, their online edition came to my house in my kitchen. They were here for 5 hours for a 3.5 minute presentation around the time where egg prices were so high and everything was going on. And they photographed us and did the whole presentation in my kitchen with Sandy on my lap the whole time. And then we went out in the backyard. So that was really pretty neat to be on national news. It's still up there, I think, if anybody wanted to see it. But one thing you have to be thinking about, again, about your hens and whatever, was a couple times, and it seemed like it was when it was hotter weather, I'd get us either a soft shell egg or a really irregular shaped egg. And maybe they're not getting enough fluid and things are off. And thank heavens the soft shelled egg only happened one time. I did have a couple of the other ones, which could have been a little bit more dehydration. So you have to watch that they're getting enough fluid. Summer's worse for sure. I like to sign for crying out loud while somebody turned down the heat. I really gave up summer visits as much as possible because they're outside. Then they come in our house, which is air conditioned, to get ready to go on their visit. And then they go in, I had the car cooled off, so they're in an air conditioned car. We go to place, it's warm inside. We come out, we have to cool the car off before we can even leave to drive home, and then they're back in the heat again. So I'm sure that has something to do with the eggs, and it got to be where by mid-June we were done until September. And winter really was bad too, as it really started getting super cold. Then they're going in nursing homes that are 80 degrees, and then they're going back outside again. And the sweater was only for photo op. Didn't really use feathers on them or sweaters on them. I just wanted to prove a point. So spring and fall, that got to be where it was the best because of the heat and the assisted living. Also, of course, chickens' body temperatures are hotter, 103, 104. So the more you hold them, you're going to get hot. I mean, I'd be sweating all over the chicken and then myself and the people I was working with because of holding the chicken. And we're making her hotter too. So that's a problem. And again, watching their behavior to see if they're getting really hot, panning a lot and all that. And if it just turns out to be a super hot day in May, heaven forbid you get a 95-degree day in May, you're not expecting, you might have to cancel. It's just your chicken's health comes first. And then the outside summer things, of course, a lot of events are outside, and that's the most common thing that you'd have to cancel. You have to have a tent, so there's another expense unless somebody has one to lend you. You have to watch how much they're being handled. Maybe a battery operated fan, bring in some watermelon for both of you, plenty of water, and be really careful because sometimes it's one thing if you're having a chicken fest under trees and on the grass where it's not too bad. But even with a tent, if you're in the street, the heat just resonates right off of that asphalt and really makes it unpleasant. So, I got, maybe it was age related too, but it just got to be where I needed to not do this. I not needed to not be out there when it was super hot. And if you had to cancel, you had to cancel. So before the pandemic, our biggest year was 2018. We did 180 visits with 3 therapy hens, and altogether we traveled over 2,000 miles. And no, she wasn't in a suitcase, but I thought it was cute. So here's my hen. So here's Rosie, Rosebud, my very first therapy hen. And then Blossom, who had a real personality. She had a little hat on because that was the most fashionable hen contest. And Blossom, who was real good at the piano. And then Sadie, who I really think was the world's best therapy hen. And by then, Freckles was blind, and you can see we were outside. I was giving him a treat, and she just stood on Freckles' back. Freckles probably thought she was getting a massage. And she was really, really good with the piano. And then was the current crop, Sandy, who's the biggest, and she's about over 4, and she has hearts down her chest and in her feathers. She's actually a black sex-linked, which is so appropriate with her hearts to be a therapy hen. And we went to the Animal Welfare Association trunk or treat, and I had her, and she had a little witch's hat on, which was cute. Lizzie is white-faced Spanish with a great big comb and a big white spot, and she's number 2 therapy hen, or was. She's out there having a grand old time. And then Susie is my Easter egger on the left, and she was really a sweetheart. Emmy, unfortunately, the other Easter egger, died about a year ago from a reproductive disorder, but Susie's still with us and doing well. Nellie never really got to be doing too much. Plus, she was a horrific molter, where I swear she lost 3/4 of her feathers, so she wouldn't have been able to do much anyway. But here we are, Sandy and Sadie and me, and Sandy and Lizzie and me, and all my hens. The only one in the middle is Emmy, that's no longer with us, and Darlie, who's my house chicken. So please like us on Facebook. We have a page on the road with Sandy and her sisters, the Therapy Hens. And thank you very much for your time. Let me know if you want to take the exam so I can send you a certificate. And if you're interested, once you finish the class, in being on the chicken certified handlers chicken Facebook page as well. Thank you. Have a good day.